Friends, today we're going to review the topic of equivalent ratios. Starting off with what is a ratio, so we need to recall that a ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Some examples for us to look at too. If I have the ratio 1/2, that's going to be equivalent to the ratio 5/10. Another example, if I have the ratio 3/2 or 3/2, that's going to be equivalent to the ratio 30/20, or 30/20. Another way to write them is with a colon. So a colon, recall, is the two dots like this. So if I have my ratio is 2:5, that could also be equivalent to the ratio 4:10. They're kind of like fractions. They're not always fractions, but we will see fractions commonly for ratios as well. So let's look at how to create an equivalent ratio. So we're going to say that it's similar to fractions, and we can use a couple of operations. We can typically use multiplication or division. Okay? And the reason we want to say or division is because they're very closely related. Like when I have 1/2, if I take 1/2 and I multiply both by the same number, remember, like times 5 times 5, I'm actually multiplying that fraction by 1, because 5/5 reduces to 1. When we do that though, 1 times 5, 5, 2 times 5, we get 10. So I've just made an equivalent ratio there. We can make other equivalent ratios for 1/2 by multiplying it by any other number. We can multiply it by any large number, any small number. We can multiply it by 2. If all I need to do is make an equivalent ratio, I would probably choose a smaller number to do it first. So this would be 2/4. Okay. An example of using division. Let's say we start with a ratio of 15 to 30. If I recall that I can divide both of those by 15, and I'll get a whole number for each of them, then the equivalent ratio that I make here will be 1 to 2. Let's look at that 15 to 30 again. You might have said, well, 15 and 30, they both end in a 5 or a 0, so I can divide both by 5, right? And remember that when we say we can divide both or multiply both by the same number, we're actually multiplying or dividing it by 1, because we're not changing the value, we're just changing how that number looks. 15 divided by 5, we get 3. 30 divided by 5, we get 6. So 15 to 30 is the same as 1 to 2. 15 to 30 is the same as 3 to 6. 1 to 2 is also equivalent to 3 to 6 here. All right, let's look at how do we tell, are they equivalent? So sometimes we're asked to tell, are things equivalent? Let's take 1/3. We're going to say, is it equivalent to 10/20? So a couple different ways we can do these. We can say, well, how do I get from 1 to 10 if I'm multiplying or dividing? If I'm multiplying, I want to do 1 times 10 to get to 10. If I use that rule we think of as working that way, we have to use the same thing here. So 3 times 10, is that going to be 20? That doesn't work. So for this one, I would say no. And that's because this does not equal 20. Let's look at another example too. Let's say I have 50/20. And I want to know, is that equal to 10/4? So let's find what our rule is. I can go either way. I can go 50 to 10. So that would be dividing. Divide by 5. Let's see if we can use that same rule down here in the denominator. So numerator, divide by 5, that's 10. 20 divided by 5, that is 4. So they both check out. So this one works. We're going to say yes for that one. So that's one way that we can find if ratios are equivalent. Another thing that we're going to have to do here is make a ratio table. So when I'm given a prompt, I need to read it carefully. It says a recipe calls for 2 parts of chocolate chips and 3 parts of peanut butter. Create a ratio table to show different equivalent ratios for this. So I'm going to use 2 parts chocolate chips, 3 parts peanut butter, and I'm simply going to multiply those by different numbers. So first I'm going to multiply them by 2 over 2. 2 times 2 would be 4. 3 times 2 would be 6. And then let's work our way up. We multiplied by 2, so now from the beginning, let's multiply by 3. 2 times 3 would be 6. 3 times 3 would be 9. We always look for patterns in math, right? So now multiply by 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. Then we could keep going in order too. You could multiply by 5 next. Or we can multiply by anything we wanted to just to make a ratio table. So next I'm going to multiply by 10. So from the beginning, 2 times 10 is 20. 3 times 10 is 30. Remember, you don't have to multiply in order by anything, but you do have to multiply by the same number because we want to end up having an equivalent ratio. Next, let's multiply by 15. 2 times 15, we get 30. 3 times 15, we get 45. So you could choose any numbers making a ratio table. We just have to make sure that we do the math properly and that they are equivalent.